Welcome. You're tuned in to the Living in Rhythm podcast, where we wax philosophy and experience in the art and science of living in rhythm. I'm Sunday, and I came here to let my soul shine. It's a lifestyle, you know what I'm saying? Welcome back. Happy solstice. It's really wild to think that I haven't recorded a podcast for over 2 years now. The previous episode, I was diving into the axis of within and without, where the eclipses were starting to take place in the sign of Libra and Virgo, or Libra and Aries. And I definitely went within. Yes, I did. I have been on an incredible recalibration journey. I pulled back from so many things and sort of recalibrated, reorganized, recommitted to my passions, my lessons, and my ability to actually apply them to my day-to-day practice. So yes, it's been I've had quite an experience over these last couple years, working through that axis of within and without, building more self-trust, getting rid of people, places, things that are no longer serving me and serving my mission and my passion that I'm ready to lean into. And and then we went into this incredible new era cycle of the axis of devotion and reason, where the nodes of the moon were transiting, and still are transiting, Pisces and Virgo. So we're finishing that up, and coming up in the next month, we'll be having a whole new lunar cycle of eclipses going on, and I'm excited to talk about that. But more importantly today, I would love to share with you some of the ways that I'm going to be embracing and living my best life, living in rhythm during the summer solstice that is here. This is why I'm dropping this podcast in celebration of the summer solstice in the Northern Hemisphere. So let's take a few moments to tune in, and then we'll deepen our understanding around what that's all bringing. Thanks for being here. Yay. Core calibration time. Take a nice deep inhale. And as you exhale, ground your energy rooted into the earth. Feel the balance between the vertical axis of the earth and sky, your rooted nature of your feet or your hips, however you are right now. Just ground into the earth, and then create an oppositional expansion and lift, not only just straight up, but out to the sides. So often we just breathe into the up in the front of our field, but see if you can't tune into the sides, the posterior and the lateral part of your bubble. And maybe as you settle into this, you'll remember all my little language that I like to talk about when we're doing our core calibration. So you have your center of gravity, your root of your spine, and the crown of your skull. But then we also have, I like to think of it as like the Glenda the Good Witch bubble, my biofield or my aura, the space that surrounds me. And so as you take the next few breaths in your own timing, see if you can't use your imagination and your sense of awareness to bring more energy and circulation into the sides, to the space that's behind you, to the space that's in front of you, below you, and above you, all with your heart in the center there. And just allow that energy to circulate and to calibrate, to give you a little sense of awareness and presence in this very moment, right here, right now. And I hope that brings a little bit of memory to your mind, to to your body, to your spirit, of how powerful just breathing deeply and bringing your presence to the moment can give you so much more energy and so much more awareness just to this moment. Because I that's one of the things, like I was saying, going within. I kept noticing that like whenever I'm not present, right, my energy's going other directions. I'm actually a little bit out of physical balance. My body is actually out of a physical imbalance, and then the mind gets out of a physical imbalance, or the mind gets out of balance, and then pretty soon your spiritual / energetic consciousness gets a little imbalanced. And it's no big deal. This happens throughout the whole day. Like, it happens on and off throughout the whole day, every day. And so it's not so much about us like wanting to stay perfectly present and grounded and centered 24/7, but it's more about us knowing and recognizing and becoming aware when we are and when we aren't. And so I use that 1 to 3 breaths to sort of develop a sense of home, that sense of base, the baseline, the neutrality, the center of gravity. That's home in my physical structure. And then when I circulate the breath and I can start to feel that energy actually surround me in my field, around my biofield, and then that gives me energy as well. It also is protection. And so we're working, I really want to, I'm starting this episode, this new season on the summer solstice, as the sun's moving into the sign of Cancer, in the zodiac sign of Cancer. I am thinking like, yes, home. Home is where the heart is. Home is where baseline is. This is where we calibrate, where we get our energy, where we store and charge our battery. So I will be talking about that as we get into the cosmic sync a little bit more. But I'm hoping that you just using that 1 to 3 breaths brings you back to this practice that we did for 54 episodes. Every episode we talked about the breathing and how important it is to allow ourselves to come into our center, but also the present moment. And from when we're in that present moment, that's where we can be most efficient. It's where we have the most capacity to be at our highest potential, where we have the most energy and insight and clarity. So again, developing a practice of being able to drop into the 1 to 3 breaths throughout the day when you feel yourself maybe out of balance or out of sync, to use that breathing to then drop in and find base, to find home, so that you can really build strength and energy there to use when you're out in the world doing your things. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to say about that core calibration too, just to remind everyone, is how important it is to be able to tune into our sensory awareness and our nervous system regulation. So as we breathe and as we find that center of gravity organized, aligned in our core, the nervous system has the capacity to sort of flush and cleanse. The central nervous system connects our brain through our spine, and that is the mainframe of your being. And so being able to regulate our nervous system, especially in this world we're living now, there's lots of energy, lots of information, lots of emotions. And so having a regulated nervous system will help you be able to process that stuff that's coming in without it throwing you off balance or overwhelming you or making you overreact. So I really do feel like this grace is the place to be moving into this next, this new era that we're in. How we do that is through being able to calibrate our core, find our center of gravity, and then harmonize with our environment and the things that are around us, the people, places, and things around us. Okay, so I also just want to say this last thing. I wrote down, I'm looking at my notes. If you're watching the video, you can see that I'm looking at my little notes that I that I wrote to help me keep my ideas organized in this podcast. But basically, I have this word written down. I said fullness when it comes to core calibration. And what I'm thinking about that is like when I come to my imagining my auric bubble, my biofield, I love thinking about it being at its full capacity, just fully inflated, sort of like a balloon or a bubble, right? So you want to get that fullness going. And the other thing I got to say about that is that when we are open enough, when our nervous system is regulated, we're tuned in through our sensory system, and we are calibrated through our biofield, we can receive more. And I really need everyone to hear this. The idea of being able to tune into our physical body and our biofield in such a way where we're at our fullness, then our heart, mind, and spirit are open enough to receive more. Not just things or monies or whatever, but I'm talking energy. I'm talking insight. I'm talking wisdom. I'm talking all of it. And it also allows us to be able to have discernment through the filter of what we allow into that field. So a fullness gives us a sense of being able to receive or also repel what we don't need. So yes, like I said, we'll be diving in, we'll be getting back in a groove, and hopefully you can practice this and it starts to make sense for you on your personal level. Always know I'm available for one-on-one sessions, Zoom sessions of embodiment practices where we can do some breath, meditation, Pilates, structural organization, just embodiment awareness. I love sharing that stuff. So, okay, you can find that on the website, livingrhythm.com. But here, let's talk next. Let's talk about this summer solstice. So the summer solstice takes place on June 21st in the Northern Hemisphere. And it's the winter solstice for those of you that are living in the Southern Hemisphere. And I think that's interesting because the solstice represents the sun's peak point in its cycle. It's the solar zenith. It's at its highest point in its cycle when you get to a solstice point. So I'm in the Northern Hemisphere. I'm always speaking to my time, my place, my presence, because that's where I'm at. And then you can figure it out for you. Okay. But in the summer solstice basically peaks on June 21st at 2:24 a.m. Mountain Time. And what that means is that the zodiac sign, or the sun, is basically ingressing into the zodiac sign of Cancer, 0 degrees on June 21st. So I kind of already talked about the sign of Cancer, but I'll get a little bit more in depth. The zodiac sign of Cancer is a water sign. It always, 0 degrees always marks that solstice point, whether you're northern or southern hemisphere. That 0 degrees Cancer. And then it marks the beginning of the Cancer season. Cancerians are the emoters. They emote. They are emotional. The sign of Cancer is ruled by the moon. It is intuitive. It is sensitive and sensual through an emotional realm. The sign of Cancer is very intuitive and psychic. It has the ability to feel and sense like water, like tides. It can feel the push and the pull. So it's ruled by the crab, and the little crab is sort of finicky. You can watch them scamper around the beach, and then you see them hide in their shells, hide under the rocks. They're fast-moving, fast-witted, fast emotionally reactive. They're emotionally reactive, very quick. So like it's kind of cool because coming from the sign of Gemini, which is the sign before Cancer, it's very mental. The Gemini energy is very mental, mind, expression. And then you get to the sign of Cancer and it's more emotional, feeling, expression. And so you can watch the little bit, my beloved Cancerians in my life. I can see them. There's such a fine line. If you cross that line, they're going in their shell, and you'll have to come back later. So you may know some of these Cancerians in your life. If they have, they may not be a Cancer sun. They might be a Cancerian moon or a Cancerian rising. I have several of those in my life. And I always like to describe astrology through, I love the Jeffrey Wolf Green perspective. He's the evolutionary astrologer guy. He talks about using astrology as a way to observe and make connections. He calls it observation and correlation. And if you've listened to any other episodes prior to this, you've heard me say this. This is what we do. This is what I do and how I use astrology. I like to observe the cycles and the seasons and make connections. And what's cool is as you start to get to be more adept and familiar with astrology, you will start to notice patterns with certain signs that show up in your life that show up on a regular basis in different ways. And the way that I look at that is they're there to give you feedback in that regard. So there, you may have some heavy Cancer energy in your Cancerians in your life that you will start to get some insight around how you can maybe learn to use some of that Cancerian energy to benefit your well-being and your fulfillment in your life. Because remember, even if you don't have a planet or the sun or the moon in the sign of Cancerian or in sign of Cancer, everybody does have the sign. We have all of the signs in our chart. Some are more activated than others. And again, if you maybe don't have an active Cancerian house in your chart, you might have other people in your life that are helping to fulfill that gap, so that we're all looking for the fullness. We're all looking for fulfillment and fullness of our expression and our being in life. So yes, again, observe and connect. So some of the key transits that are happening when I look at the chart, you'll see on my website, you can see, I always post the actual chart. But basically the astrological chart of the summer solstice in the Northern Hemisphere has the moon at 23 degrees Virgo, while the sun is at that 0 degrees Cancer. So there's sextile. And then some of the other notable things is that the sun is actually trining the nodes of the moon, or the north node of the moon in Pisces, and it's sextiling the south node of the moon in Virgo. So, and this is potent too, because as I say, I always love to study those solar lunar cycles. The nodes of the moon are the places where the eclipses happen during that time period. So our previous Living in Rhythm podcast, the pioneering episode 54, I was going into detail about the nodes of the moon hitting the eclipses in the signs of Libra and Aries. And I highly recommend, I actually, in prepping for this, I went back to that episode just to kind of re-listen and revisit some of what I was talking about to be able to pick it up where we left off. And it's actually, it's kind of cool if you go back to that and then you come to sort of you can reflect a little bit on where you've been over the last 18 months or over those 18 months, because we're basically ending. I took such a break that I did not do any podcasts relating to the axis of Virgo and Pisces, which is where we're at right now. So that north node right now is at 1 degrees Pisces, and the south node is at 1 degrees Virgo. And how I'm looking at that, I'm calling them the axis. I think I had a different name for it, but as of this podcast, I'm calling it the axis of devotion and reason. And that's because we're really looking to develop what are we committing to? And what are we reasoning? What's our reasoning? How are we rationalizing, reasoning, contemplating on a very, I don't want to say this, almost on like I want to use the word critique, critical thinking, critical analysis. Critical sounds a little rough and rugged, but the idea of being able to really use discernment and a critical mind to be able to then get a little bit broader in our thinking so that we can expand our thinking and actually take it to a higher spiritual plane, a higher consciousness, really. So I'm using words. These are words I'm pulling from to describe the axis of Virgo and Pisces. That north node being in Pisces is really, anytime we go north node, it is telling us where to direct our energy. That is where you point your ship. And the Pisces energy is very much about unconditional love, cosmic consciousness, super consciousness, love, devotion. Yeah, these things. And then the Virgo South Node is discernment, critical thinking, detail oriented. It's sort of like one's really zoomed in and looking at all the details while the other one is zoomed out and feeling the big picture and the wholeness and the fullness of it, right? Fullness. There it is again. So it's interesting. So the nodes of the moon traverse through the zodiac backwards. And so they started at the late degree of Pisces and Virgo, and now they're at 1 degree. And so again, it's a trine, this north node on this summer solstice. The north node is trining the sun. And I love that, because what that shows me is that we are getting we're getting like a light bulb, a flashlight, a spotlight on the future, on the direction that we are working on where we're evolving into. So with the nodes, we evolve into the head of the dragon, the north node, and we evolve from the tail of the dragon, where we've been. It's past experience. It's what we've been working through, or what we're working on right now. And so sort of last call from now, June 21st through July 26th, to work this axis of reasoning and devotion. Where is your devotion? Where are you putting your energy and your intention? What are you where's your reverence? And where's your discernment? How are you filtering and cleansing and keeping things clear through information that's being received, through feelings and insight that are being received? Because the other really potent thing that's going on in the chart for the summer solstice is that Uranus is basically squaring the nodes of the moon. And Uranus just went into the sign of Gemini over the last month for the first time in 84 years. And it will be there for about 7 to 8 years. It is one of these things where Uranus coming into Gemini is activating so much energy around our mind and ideas, and a little bit around our beliefs, but more about our ideas and how we look and think, how we express. There's lots of energy. So I always think of Uranus as a lightning bolt. It's a lightning storm. So there's lots of charge. There's lots of power in that. And so with Uranus squaring the nodes, we're getting, not only do we have that sun sort of shining on the north node, showing us the direction of our spirituality, our devotion, and where to place the reverence of our life at this moment. But then also the Uranus is helping us think about this and express and communicate about this in new ways. And so it's activating, like, I think that we're basically coming into this place where we're going to be learning we're just going to be expressing ourselves different. We're going to be communicating differently. We're going to be thinking. I think we're already all thinking very differently than we have over the last 5-6 years. It's been such a transformative time. And this is putting on like a whole new, like, let's begin again in a way where we can lean into the future. Like, let's be more future oriented. Let's be more visionary and revolutionary in the way that we think, in the way that we move in this world, so that we can start to progress. We want to start to evolve and progress from where we've been. And I know, we have to, because this, where we're at right now, it feels like the square. We're in the middle of like, are you going to go back and fall back into the old ways, or are you going to lean into the future? And I'll tell you now, you can play with those old ideas and those old beliefs and patterns and habits and whatnot. But the real thing is that, like, we're moving forward, and you're either going to get rocked doing it or you're going to roll doing it. Flow with it. Okay. Flow with it. We're living in rhythm, baby. That's what we're trying to do around here. That's what we are doing. So yeah, so there's that. We got the nodes squaring Uranus. We got the sun sextile Chiron. That's really interesting. That Chiron at 0 degrees Taurus. And then we've got Venus opposite Pluto. And Pluto's making its way. It's actually retrograde right now, but it has been making its way deeper into the sign of Aquarius, which is actually ruled by Uranus. So more of that electricity going on. There's like a lightning storm happening in the astrology. It's lots of lightning, lots of energy, lots of charge asking us to evolve and change and grow. Leave the old stuff behind. So Pluto opposite Venus, it's our values. These are our values that are being polarized. And when I look around at the collective, there is definitely a story around ethics, morals, values. What are we going to do about it? Are we going to live by these things? Are we going to let people act crazy and be unethical? Or are we going to allow ourselves to change and grow and be a more of a work together as a collective humanity, as conscious humans on Earth that have love and respect and reverence for all life, all sentient beings, all that is, just having some freaking respect for life. You hear me? Okay. And then the other thing is like the big talks are that the June 30th is a big one. June 30th, we got Mercury starting its retrograde cycle. And that'll be retrograding through the sign of Cancer. And you've heard this before if you've listened to the podcast. Retrogrades are not bad, okay? Like retrogrades are not bad. Neither are oppositions and squares. So cut it out with the negative talk. I've come to observe and understand that people that actually have a retrograde, Mercury retrograde in their chart actually thrive during Mercury retrograde seasons. So this one's lasting from June 30th to July 24th, retrograding through Cancer. So there's a lot of reflecting, reminiscing, recalibrating, reviewing, emotional communication. That's the way I'm looking at it. Emotional, Cancerians, communication, Mercury. It's also about expression. So you might find yourself emotionally expressive and dramatic, and it's going to kind of get even more dramatic as that Leo kicks in, which I'm talking about next. But the idea of like trying to temper and pace yourself a little bit, to pace your waters, to calm your waters as much as possible, to really feel before you express. That's going to be really potent moving into July. And then the last thing that's really happening on that in this next week and a half or so is that on June 30th, again, we've got Jupiter moving into the sign of Leo for the first time in 12 years. And so I really want, I always give dates because it helps you. Again, I'm doing this so that you can take this information that I use for my health, well-being, and fulfillment, and I share it with you so that you can apply it to your own health, well-being, and fulfillment in your own unique way. And so I always say, like, when a planet goes into a new sign, you want to reflect a little bit. Like, obviously the sun, that happens once a year, but Pluto, it takes 12 years for Pluto to make its way through the zodiac. So if you go back 12 years from now, from June 30th, I should say, you can reflect on what were some of the things that were really big in your life at that time. And I'm using the word big because that's Jupiter. Jupiter amplifies and magnifies. It's the magnifier of the solar system. Anything that you put on Jupiter, it gets bigger. And so I would look back at your life 12 years ago and see what were some of the big themes, what were big themes happening in your life around that time period. And then you can sort of see history or astrology and history. They don't necessarily repeat, but they rhyme. And that's why, again, observing and making connections through your observations of these cycles can be really beneficial for how you actually apply and work these transits. So, for example, in my life, 12 years ago was 2014. And that was a really big time for me. The big story of that era was when I had started a studio in Niwot, Colorado. I had a studio on the property where we lived, and it was like the most gorgeous studio. Some of you that regularly listen were there and helped make that place so special, so sacred. And I was like really leaning into teaching. I was really leaning into going so deep into my Pilates practice and also how I was sharing and expressing that information. So, and I was taking it to new levels, and I felt like I was, it's kind of funny, but like this Jupiter going into Leo also brings up like high, like royal energy. That's the Leos. They're creative. They're the leaders. There's some forms of leaders that are like more royal leaders than they are like diplomatic leaders. Let's put it that way. But they're also very heart-centered. It's fiery, expressive, and playful and fun. And that really, when I reflect on this Jupiter cycle, I'm in 2014, I'm excited because I was having fun and I was really playing, which just even shows that like now I'm back on the pod again, and I'm back on the podcast, and I'm looking to have some fun and play and push some of my creative endeavors to a next level. And I hope you come along and join me with that. So look in your own life and see what were some of the big themes happening 12 years ago. And that might give you some insight on how to play with this next year, upcoming year of Jupiter being in the sign of Leo. Okay. And so, I wrote a Substack back in February about this thing. I was talking about how we really are like officially in a new era. I was talking about how a lot of the big planets have been passing the sign of Aries. And so like when you look at the zodiac or the planets on a chart, you'll see that most of the planets are actually in the first few signs. They're starting to spread out now, but back at the beginning of 2026, we really had this mark of Saturn and Neptune went into the sign of Aries, 0 degrees Aries. Aries is the beginning of the zodiac. Anytime anything goes there, it's like the start. It's sort of like starting a new cycle. And so those were really big planets to be starting over again. And we've been preparing for it over the last 6 years. I mean, a lot of the big planetary transits that were going on starting in 2019, December, Christmas 2019, we had some eclipses or on Christmas in 2019. And I feel like ever since then, we've been on this really wild ride of fun and also transformative and evolutionary transits that definitely have put us all to the test, humanity as a collective to the test. And that's not really ending. We're working on integrating the lessons. This way I'm looking at when I see the astrology upcoming. But I just wanted to say that and you can go to my Substack, Sunday Phillips Substack. And if you didn't read it, you can get some of that insight from there. But in that, the main gist of it is that we're in a new time and we're in a new era. And if we can really start to just get brave around the fact that we are changing and to go ahead and allow ourselves to change and evolve in these times, it's going to help us get through this time a little bit more gracefully, but also I'm feeling like I always do this, but like when we work the transits and we're really present with them and we're honoring ourselves in the process, I think it's a really powerful, incredible time for humanity. And me, my little optimistic energy, I will always look at that shiny side of things. And I'm just saying, embrace the change, allow yourself to be adaptable, agile. Be willing to be open enough, full enough to receive the insights, the feedback, the guidance, the wisdom that you need to take yourself through this transformative time. The more centered and balanced we are moving into the new era, the more we're going to be able to ride these waves and actually have some fun with them and have some fulfillment with what we're experiencing. And like one more thing, just you're your best guide. You're your best. Your timing is the best timing. So in all of my work, my main base mission is to help others know themselves on another level where they can let their soul shine in their way, and I'll shine mine in my way, right? You be you, I am me, right? So I just want to talk a little bit more about some of the themes that we're going through for summer, and that are coming up through the astrology, through summer solstice and summer 2026. And then just a little bit about how we can really maximize working the transits. Because again, if you embody this stuff and you actually take advantage of it, then you're going to grow and evolve, versus if you just let it hit you and rock you. I've been thinking this a lot. Like, everything's so visual in my mind too. I can't wait till I can have like more visual things going on, but I'm not ready for that yet. But anyways, when I think about astrology or transits in general, I think about it like the beach. It's always water. You go to the shore and there's a set of waves coming in. And so you kind of climb in, you walk in a little bit deeper, and then you can sort of feel the push and the pull of the tides. Well, astrological transits are like big waves coming in. And so you can look ahead, you can look out in front of you and see a big wave coming. And if you know that transit is coming, then you can actually make a decision about how best to work that transit. Are you going to swim up over the wave? Are you going to duck under the wave? Are you going to meander around? There's a lot of things you can do. You might ride it in, you might surf it in, or body surf it in. Yeah. So anyways, there's a million, you have choices if you know it's coming. And so that's what I'm encouraging. When I give you this information, it's for you to be able to receive it like a weather report, and then you can make your own judgment call of if you should bring your umbrella or if you should surf. Okay. So some of the themes that are happening this summer is that because of all that Uranus energy, I do believe that we're going to be getting a lot of, like, the mental energy is on high. I can feel it in myself. And with that mental energy, we're sort of pursing and discerning through myths, delusions, illusions. And so back to this idea around really having a sense of your center of gravity and a strong sense of discernment, so that you can actually, as this mental energy is coming in, you can make better choices about how to actually, how to receive it, or how to respond to it or not. Because a lot of the mental energy, what I'm experiencing in this transit is Uranus has really started to come into Gemini, is that, I just got a million ideas, and I usually do anyway, but it's like really high, fast and strong. So I have a little notebook that I just jot down like brainstormed ideas, and they can be absurd or not or whatever, but it's more about just having a place to put that stuff. And so that when I'm ready to process it, I can go through and either laugh and be like, that's absurd, or like, wow, that's amazing. Because I have a feeling that we're going to be getting a lot of really out of bounds ideas that might not make sense in the moment. But then as you have time and experience with some of those concepts and ideas, you might actually find that they're extremely visionary and revolutionary. And I want us to work these. So there's that. And then with the Cancerian energy, there's a lot of ideas around, or practices around, developing security, a sense of belonging, a sense of home, which we talked about through the Core Calibration, really using your embodiment practice to find that sense of security, to find that home base and develop it and strengthen it, so that through that strengthening, you can again receive more guidance, intuitions. You can follow your gut feelings. You can follow your instincts. You can hear your ancestral support system, your guardian angel system. So all of that is supported by really understanding and having a strong sense of home base, center to enter is what I like to say. And then we're also getting a big review around our value systems and our resources, and how best to value our resources and use our resources wisely. This is not just money, it's earth resources, body, physical resources, physical energy, spiritual energy, mental energy. So a lot of this, again, comes back to the importance around embodiment. The key is embodiment. Know thyself and feel strength in your center of gravity, and then move creatively from there. And through that, when we work it, we're going to be getting a lot more, I just feel a lot more creative energy coming through. I feel like this new era is, for those of us that have been living in rhythm and working the transits and staying present, we're going to be having a lot more cultural art, creative art coming through, cultural self-expression, visionary and political expression, things that are going to help humanity start to push through and evolve through some of the heaviness that we've been going through. So again, I really feel like it's time for us to work that, like, where's our reverence? Where's our devotion? And how are we making sense and reasoning and discerning in this time? It's going to be super important. But then also, by doing this, we're going to start to sense and be aware of the people and places and things that are around us that can be collaborative and supportive on what we're trying to work on. And I really, really, really feel this strong, that moving into these next year and a half, 2 years, collaborations are key. Collaborating with people that are actually maybe intersectional. So it doesn't necessarily have to be like, common modalities or whatever, but intersectional collaborations where we bring together ideas, beliefs, and practices to then form new foundations, to start to build new foundations and systems and practices that are, again, going to help humanity evolve in this time. That's what it's about. We're moving forward. We're future focused. And so those high mental energy loads can put a strain on the nervous system in the body. So again, breath work, movement, meditation, being in nature, touching grass, everybody says, right? Hugging trees. That's my favorite. And by doing this, then we're going to start rewriting these narratives. We're building new foundations, rewriting narratives. We're renewing our mission statements and our passions, and how to best use all of our skill sets on an integrated way that's like gives us more fulfillment and fullness in our experience. Future focus, baby. That's what we're trying to do. So as we change the way we communicate and express and how we're thinking, we're going to be shedding old identities, old belief systems, old forms of leadership and politics and the way we govern and interact and communicate with one another. It's all being reconfigured. Allow the change and transformation to happen. Do it gracefully. Allow those things to fall away so that we can truly evolve and change. Now's the time. Please, please, please do what you can to allow yourself to face the future and change in this time. So, yeah, I would say really let yourself be creative. Let yourself be playful and expressive. Stay centered so that doesn't feel unruly or wild. Although if you want it to be, go for it. But, allow yourself to express yourself and to have fun with this as we play in this new era with these new storylines and narratives, as we rewrite our own story and reconnect to our guidance and our passion and our angels, really, like our spirits. Or just the energy, it doesn't have to be angels. It can just be the energy itself. But again, be willing to change, be adaptable, be agile, be loving, and have fun. Okay? So I just want to say this. Thank you so much for listening and tuning in. It feels really good to be back. I have some upcoming workshops. On July 26th, I'm doing a nodal shift workshop. More details on that, but basically it's to help us. We're going to be pre-eclipsing again. So I want to do that to set us up to understand the upcoming 18 months and that axis of Aries or of Aquarius and Leo, the axis that I'm calling heart and soul. Really powerful time coming, and right now there's a powerful time. So again, as you're living in rhythm and you're tuned in, then you're going to be able to face these cosmic waves as best you can in the moment. And, that's the best way to do it rather than get pummeled by the waves. But, so I'll have that July 26th workshop. There'll be more on that on my website and in my Instagram content. And then I'm also going to do a solar eclipse workshop on August 9th. So both of those are Sundays, Sunday afternoons. I'm going to be doing some workshops coming up. Stay tuned for that. And then always remember, you can book a one-on-one astro session or embodiment session or combo session. And we will really, we'll dive deep into how to customize your own personal practice. And I would love to support you in that if that's something that you're interested in. And other than that, thanks so much for tuning in and being present and being here. I really am so grateful to be back, and I'm grateful to have this little community that we have, our little Living in Rhythm podcast. So be on the lookout for future sessions. And again, thanks so much for being here. Blessings and love. Peace.